What's going on, everybody? Aaron Trevino here, back with another wonderful guest. We have Karen Maxwell from the Dallas-Fort Worth area. How are you doing today, Karen?
I'm doing great.
Wonderful. I know this has been in the works for a little bit, so it's great to see you, great to connect, and I'm excited for today's episode with you.
Me too.
Absolutely, Karen. So for those of us who aren't too familiar with you, would you introduce yourself, please?
Absolutely. Well, my name is Karen Maxwell, and I've been a real estate investor since 2013. I'm originally from Kilgore, Texas, which is over in East Texas. I've just moved to Princeton, Texas from Longview. I was a real estate investor up in Grayson County and even in Gregg County. I thought I muted that. I'm sorry. Let me just mute that. So Gregg County, Grayson County, and I am still investing in East Texas and Gregg County. I have 2 flips going on there. I focus and specialize in single family, but I've recently started getting involved in some multifamily deals, some storage units, things like that. So kind of stepping outside of my comfort zone, because you always need to be growing. So that's what I'm doing right now. And I'm also getting started in short-term rentals.
Okay. Wow. So a lot of different parts of the business and a lot of different places. You said, Kilgore, Longview, and then now you're in Princeton.
Yes.
Okay. So, maybe for those of our viewers who aren't too familiar with those areas, maybe they're out of state. Could you kind of describe more or less where those places are?
Sure. So Longview and Kilgore are over in East Texas. That's about 2 hours east of Dallas. And then I'm in Princeton, which is an hour, probably about 30 minutes away from Dallas. So I'm right near McKinney, great little area, but I needed to be closer to the Metroplex because I find myself driving here, typically 1 to 2 times a week. I've recently started a real estate investor group here in Plano, Real Impact Plano, and we meet monthly, and we are currently meeting in Addison at the Quest Trust Building. So that's been an exciting new turn of events for myself as well.
Okay. No, I'm curious. And, it's funny. I always have to ask because, for someone coming to Texas, or maybe they just moved here, they're not familiar with it. I mean, Texas is nearly, I want to say, the size of Germany. So it's, a lot to know.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and I'm curious as well, you mentioned that group that you have, y'all meet in Addison, you said, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And, what's kind of the premise of the group, or what do you guys mostly focus on?
Well, it's a real estate investor group. It was founded, it's a Real Impact franchise. So Dennis J. Henson's Real Impact is a franchise. And Dennis Henson and Roger Pascal founded this back in, I think, 2018, 19, and then COVID hit in 2020. So Dennis was, he was a mentor, and he used to mentor 16 people at a time over a 12-week period. And he got sick. He had some health issues, so he had to stop doing that so aggressively. So they had this concept. Have you ever read the book Multipliers?
No, I don't even know who that's by.
Okay. I gave that book away at an event. I gave that book away, your favorite book. It was a book. It's about, basically the premise is, if you know how to do something really well and you teach someone else how to do that same thing, then they can go teach someone else. So that's what Dennis and Roger put together. They basically took all of Dennis's training, and then they trained us, which we are the trainers. So we are called Impact Master Trainers. So Dennis teaches us what he taught his students, and then we go out and teach our students. And it's very, very easy. Real estate investing has so many different aspects, but we believe in changing the quality of people's lives through real estate investing. So we get back to the basics. If you learn and know the basics, then you can do the more difficult, like, say, taking on a subject to, or some kind of wonderful creative financing strategy. But that's what we do. And our monthly meetings are free. And like this, for example, this Saturday, August 6th, I have Wade Cricken. He is a local real estate attorney, and he's going to come talk to us about some of the legal issues that real estate investors may face and how to protect themselves and their assets.
No, that makes a lot of sense. And it sounds like, the value proposition is definitely there. And, one thing I thought was interesting you talked about was kind of changing lives through real estate investing. And I'm curious as well, maybe a bit more about you and your background. Could you kind of describe, where you grew up and, was real estate part of your life, or how did you
No,
kind of get into this?
I was an oil field child. So my dad was in the oil field, and we grew up in East Texas, and we moved to West Texas because that's where the oil field took us. I got married, and my husband was in the oil field as well. And so we moved all over. Anywhere the oil field took us, that's where we went. Because if you want to be successful in the oil field, you have to go where they need you. So we moved all over, and I got divorced in 2004, and remarried about a year and a half later. And I have 6 children, by the way, 6
Wow.
children from 34. She just had a birthday, 34 to 11. So
Oh,
I have them
wow.
all spread out all over the place. So definitely, if you need any mom tips, I've got you there. So anyway, I got divorced in 2012, and I met a guy, and he was interested in becoming a real estate investor. So he and I talked about that, and we dated. And he took me to a meeting one time, and the guy said, "How many of y'all have been to these meetings before?" And boy, he raised his hands, and he said, "Well, are you investing yet? Why aren't you investing yet?" And I looked at him, and I was like, he's right. So he went and signed up, and so he lived with me, and all the time, morning, noon, and night, he was watching podcasts, watching training videos, and I would be over there washing dishes and listening to what was going on. So I was kind of learning through him. And so I would go with him to put out bandit signs on Friday night and pick them back up on Sunday, and hear him take the calls. And so I started taking calls at lunch. Basically, I helped with all of his organization, like keeping all the paperwork and the building his database and stuff. And so I would take calls at lunch, and then eventually I would take calls in the evening and on weekends. And then I started talking to sellers, making offers, talking to buyers, negotiating, analyzing deals. And it was just all so fun and exciting. And he was really successful. And therefore, I was successful as well because I was learning from him. And so I was the implementer, he was the visionary, and it worked out really well when it worked out. And then in 2020, I decided to leave the company. And of course, we had a breakup. So I left the company, and decided I never wanted to be a real estate investor ever again. I was sick and tired of tenants and toilets. I was self-managing 70 properties from 2.5 hours away successfully.
Wow.
But I was so tired of dealing with contractors. And I mean, 70 properties is a lot to self-manage. And I automated as much as I could. And I was really on top of it, but it just wore me down. And then COVID hit, and, everybody went to working from home. And so people started reaching out about, hey, can you help me with build my CRM? I started my own custom CRM business. For those of you that don't know, CRM stands for Customer Relationship Management. So I built databases, basically. I took their information and I put it into a database, and I automated as much as I could to help them out as much as I could. So that was where Simple Automation Follow-Up was founded during COVID, when everybody was working from home and taking a deeper look at their systems and processes and seeing where they could save time, save money, save energy. So that's what I did. I worked with several investors, and lo and behold, as I would work with them, I would see places where they could just tweak their systems just a little bit and just astronomically increase their income and decrease their expenses and save them so much time and aggravation. I was just really, really good at knowing what needs to happen next. You asked earlier what my background was. I was a dental assistant for 24 years. So as a dental assistant, you have to know what the next tool or what the next procedure is going to be or what the next step is going to be. So I was already really good at that. And I just took that unique ability that I have, and put it into building the CRM. So for example, once you get a property under contract, you need to send it to the title company. You need to send a copy to the seller. Or if you're wholesaling it, you need to send a copy to the buyer and send a copy to the title company. So I fixed it where they could push a button and it would automatically email them the contact information, all the details, the signed contract, all that good stuff. So I was just really good at it and I really enjoyed it. But I also had a lot of investors that wanted my help building their CRM, and they weren't ready. They still needed more training. They needed more knowledge. They needed more skill sets. Mm. So then they wanted me to start coaching them, and I wasn't ready for that. How am I going to train somebody? I just know what I know. I don't know how to train someone. And then one day, Dennis Henson was going to be speaking at a local event. And I was like, oh my gosh, I know him. That's where I learned how to manage rental properties from. I got everything from him. I learned everything from him. I got my documents and all my contracts and the leases and all that stuff from him. I need to go talk to him. I missed the meeting, but somehow word got around that I was in the area, and he invited me to come up and talk to him come up and visit with him during a meeting. And I got to meet the other master trainers. And we actually now have 12 locations. We have one in Oklahoma City. Let's see, Oklahoma City, Wichita Falls, Decatur Alliance, Grapevine, HEB, Arlington, Waco, Longview, Tyler, Lindale, Plano, Grand Prairie. Did I already say HEB?
HEB, okay, no, not
yet. Okay. And then, so I guess we have 13 locations. And then we have a couple that, unfortunately, the owner passed away in Flower Mound. So we're looking for a new trainer there. And it's been great fun. So they asked me to join them. And because I live in Longview, I couldn't have my own group because the groups are separated by space and population. And you can't have two groups in Longview because it's like 100,000 people. So I did their sales and marketing, and I went out and found other people to come in and be trainers. And then one day I said, you know what? I want a group. I want my own group, but I have to move. But like I said, I was already driving to DFW so much, it just made more sense for me to move up here. So I made that move back in early July. So I've been here about a month.
Wow. That's a heck of a journey, especially, I guess I find the story so interesting on many fronts. I guess, firstly, when someone, you kind of assume that if, someone maybe grew up in the industry, their parents did it, their grandparents, something like that. But it's interesting how you kind of stumbled into it. You had the husband-wife team thing going on, and then kind of these odd, I don't know if you call them coincidences or acts of God, but things just kind of pieced together. And
it's definitely God. Definitely a God thing. I believe he puts everybody, the right people on your path, and some people for a season, some people for a reason. But as long as you learn from it and grow from it, it can't hurt you. Don't let it keep you down.
That's right. That's the motto of this podcast, right?
That's right.
Yeah. No, I like it. And, I know if you wouldn't mind, could you kind of describe, I know you talked a bit about throwing out some terms, maybe like wholesaling or sub twos, or, kind of working with investors. Maybe someone has some cash right now, or maybe they don't. Maybe they're looking to just kind of get their feet wet and start their first deal. Maybe they're working the oil field. They're looking to do real estate or even just get started. Where would you suggest someone even get started?
Well, I started out as a wholesaler. That was super easy, super fast, and it's a quick way to stack the cash. So we had a rule, wholesale 4, keep 1, unless the deal was just too good to pass up and you end up keeping more than 1. That was fine too. But that was our intent in the beginning, was to wholesale the ones that we needed to wholesale, and then cherry pick and hold the ones that we could hold with the cash that we'd stacked up. So that was super easy. So wholesaling is basically, I like to put it in terms of vehicles. So I'm going to do that because it's easier for people that aren't in real estate to understand. So Aaron, if you have a car you want to sell and you're talking about it, and I'm like, you know what? I think I'll buy your car. I'd like to buy your car for $10,000. But then I also know Sally over here is looking for that same car and she's going to pay $12,000 for it. So I get an agreement with you to buy it for 10 and I get an agreement with Sally to sell it to her for 12, then I make the middle money. So whether it be an assignment, that's just a different type of contract, an assignment, or if I have an option, or if I have an actual contract, then it would be an A to B and then B to C contract with Sally. Sally would be my C. And then the title company would wire me my funds or write me a check for that middle money, that $2,000. It's not completely as simple as that because there are some fees and such involved depending on the way you negotiate your deals. And but it's super easy way to stack up the cash. There's little to no risk. You just have to buy right and sell better.
That's right.
And that's the way a lot of people get started in real estate investing is they hear about a property that someone like grandma wants to sell her house and she doesn't want to mess with it. Maybe she's moving into assisted living facility and she's wondering, what am I going to do with all this stuff? And what am I going to do with this house? Or maybe it needs a lot of repairs and she doesn't have the money to fix it up, doesn't want to mess with it. So maybe she wants to sell it and you're her grandson. So you say, know what, grandma, I'll find a buyer for your house. Okay. So then you put it under a contract with grandma and then you go find your buyer. Same thing, same concept.
Sure. Easy
now
enough
subject,
then.
do it.
Easy enough then, right?
Yeah. I mean, it can be, there is a lot to put, wrap your head around, but it's not difficult to learn. The other thing that you were saying was subject to is a lot more advanced. It takes, you really need to be educated and be able to for your seller to have the faith in you and the trust in you to let you take over their property. So subject to means that you are taking control of the property, but you're leaving the loan in place. So you're buying it subject to the existing financing. So they have a note, maybe they can't pay it anymore, or maybe they're moving. I don't know. There's so many different scenarios. Maybe they're getting a divorce. Maybe somebody goes to jail. I don't know. I have signed many a contract at the jail, by the way, which is always interesting.
Yeah.
But yeah, so you take over the property subject to the existing financing. The deed goes into your name, but the note stays in the seller's name. And so they have to trust that you are going to pay that payment. And what's good for us as investors is we don't have to go out and get a new loan. It's already in place. We just step in and put the payments on auto pay and get those payments made. Of course, you have to do all the paperwork. There's 8 different forms that you've got to get to protect yourself and protect your seller and to communicate with the bank. And yeah, you can get into a property and start making the payments. And then if, let's say the payments are $700 a month, if you can rent it out for $1,400 a month, you're making that $700 a month or $800 a month cash flow. So, it's a great way to get in with little to no money. I don't advise buying a property subject to that needs a full rehab because that's a lot of cash that you're going to have to bring to the table, especially if they're behind in payments. So that's another way. My favorite is seller financing. Ask the seller to sell it to you on terms. Turn them into the bank. Make payments to them monthly. Put a tenant in it to cover your mortgage payment, and you're making money. Yeah.
So that's what you mean. Could you kind of clarify, maybe for those of us who aren't familiar, what on terms would mean?
On terms. So if I'm going to pay you $100,000 for your house, you want $100,000, I'm going to give you $100,000, but I want it to be on my terms. So maybe it's a very low interest rate or even a 0% interest with a no down payment, even better. But maybe you want a little bit of down payment because you have some credit cards to pay off. So then maybe I would offer you, okay, still on my terms, sell it to me for $80,000 and I'll give you $10,000 down. Mm-hmm. Or whatever they're needing that's not going to break your bank. And then you just pay them their $10,000 at closing, and then you go start making the payments. And I'm sorry, that's a step 2. On seller financing, $80,000 with $10,000 down, and then however much per month to pay it out over the 30 years or however long that they'll let you do it. The longer, the better. And then you'll just pay them monthly, but you'll still rent it out to cover that house payment and give you some cash flow.
Sure. No, that definitely makes a lot of sense. And, I'm curious as well, could you kind of describe maybe particular how, if you're looking at a single family home or any sort of deal, how you would know whether it's better to have a sub two or seller financing or wholesaling, or could you kind of just maybe describe the differences between the three?
Every deal is different.
Yeah.
But there are certain things that I look at. So their motivation, first and foremost, what's their motivation? I had a girl call me, or a grandmother call me one time, and she said, I saw your sign. I think my granddaughter needs to sell her house to you. Her and her boyfriend bought it. They were 50-50. They broke up. He's got a new girlfriend. She's living in the house with him, and he wants her to, my granddaughter, to continue paying half the payment. And neither one of them could afford the payment on their own. So they were stuck because she didn't want to pay the payment with the new girlfriend living there. So I said, it's okay. We'll buy it. We'll make the full payment. They'll be released to go do whatever they want, to go their separate ways, like for real. And so we bought that property subject to. So that's the one thing. You can't buy a property subject to if it doesn't have an existing loan. So if it doesn't have a loan, that knocks that out. Now your options are to buy it with cash and keep it, buy it with cash and wholesale it. So the determining factor there would be, do I have the money to buy this property? We bought properties for $12,000, put $10,000 in it, and then rent it out for $750 a month. Cash cow. But let's say that, like, if I don't have the money, let's say they want $100,000 and I only have 30, and they won't do a seller finance. So the seller finance, if they would, I'm going to seller finance it from them. Then I've got that cash that I can use for that down payment if needed, or for the rehab if needed. Or maybe they'll just sell it to me for $100,000 with zero down, and I'll pay them $1,000 a month. So I just look at every scenario, but their motivation is the main factor that tells me what I'm going to be able to do. And then not everybody's motivated, and not everybody will fit. Sometimes they're upside down, and that's where a good short sale specialist comes in. John Culbertson's going to be here August 27th talking about short sales. So I'm super excited to meet him and learn from him, because with a short sale, you got to have that person to handle that for you. And he's going to teach us about how to work with a short sale specialist. So.
Sure. Now, and, could you kind of clarify there as well? I know you mentioned how maybe someone is upside down. Could you kind of describe what upside down means, and then also
Sure.
what a short sale is?
Sure. So let's say they owe $100,000, but the house is only worth 60 because they have not done any repairs to it. Maybe they had a big storm and they didn't have enough insurance, and the roof has a problem and they didn't have the money to fix it. Or they never filed an insurance claim because they thought that they had to have the money for the deductible to get that done. Or maybe they started having some foundation issues. All kinds of big major things can come up where people just stop taking care of their house. So then therefore the house would be worth less than what they owe. So if they went to list it on the market and they sell it for as much to pay off the loan, but they can't get enough, then they're upside down on their mortgage. The house is worth less than what they owe. So they're not likely to be able to do that. Plus there are realtors fees and commissions and stuff involved in that. And that's more expense for them. So a lot of times they won't list their house, or won't even try to list their house because they think they can't do that. But we can buy it without charging any realtors fees or commissions, because we're not realtors. We're real estate investors. We can write that check. We can send that wire. So that's where a short sale specialist would come in. A short sale just basically means they're going to go to the bank and negotiate for the seller. Look, this house is only worth this, and I owe this much. I'm not going to be able to pay the payment anymore. What are my options? And they get that they negotiate with the bank to accept a lesser amount. And then your short sale specialist, if you brought it to them, they would give you the option to buy that property at that negotiated price, or they would go offer it to somebody else.
Okay, sure thing. No, that definitely makes a lot of sense. And, thank you for clarifying the differences between those, because, maybe for someone it's their first time, or they're kind of getting acclimated to it. hearing these different terms, it's a lot to soak in.
It sure is.
Yeah, absolutely. And, I'm curious as well, what, I guess, most people know all the major metros in Texas, right? We have Austin, Dallas, Fort Worth, Houston, San Antonio, and a few smaller ones in between. But like, do you see any differences between where you grew up versus Dallas, Fort Worth area in terms of real estate, or maybe
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
So 2020, we had buying criteria. So as real estate investors, we have buying criteria, and everyone's different and every area is different. So let's say up in Sherman and Denison, we could buy properties, we could sell a property to a realtor, a real estate investor that was a cash buyer for 70% of the ARV. The ARV means how much the house will be worth once it's been fixed up. And you get that by analyzing it and comparing it to other properties that have sold in that area. So you have to look at those properties and see what was done to those to get that price. And then how much you've got to put into this house to get it in that shape and condition to see how much it's going to be worth. So that's whenever you go to analyzing the deal, 70% minus repairs, that's your price. So we could buy them up there for 60% and then sell them for 70%. Super easy all day. In Collin County, where I'm at now, people were paying 85%.
Wow.
In the nicer areas. Yeah. 85% of the ARV. And some of the really hot areas, they'll still do that. But in East Texas, 2 years ago, we can only pay 50% because most of the investors there would only pay about 60%. East Texas in Longview, it has grown. I mean, the real estate is through the roof, and it was kind of stagnant, kind of stable for a long time. And all of a sudden now it's just like, there's not enough inventory. They can't get it. They don't have enough houses. We have 2 flips going on right now. And I'm like, I can't wait for them to hit the market because I can't wait to see what happens.
Wow.
And then when I was working with an investor down in the Houston area, they were about 80% also, in the area that we were working in.
Wow. So,
different all over the place.
So I'm curious as well, maybe, can you kind of describe as well, these higher percentages, is that more, why would someone, want to buy at a higher percentage versus lower? Is that more dictated by the market, or because
they know where they can make the money. These investors were buying more high-end properties, paying more value or more percentage because they knew that they could get that rent from that property. I figured we would for sure sell it to an end buyer that was going to fix the house up and live in it, but the house hardly needed any repairs. And they were it's really hard to find properties over in like East McKinney, Old McKinney. That's just the original town. That's where all the older homes are. And that's where the investors are just in a frenzy, but it's really hard to find some. And so we found these ones on the other side of town that were more high end, and we were really surprised by how much people paid for them.
Wow, how about that? No, and it's interesting. It's as well. It's almost like if you know you're going to step into a new market, a new state, or just any part of the state, it's almost like you don't really know a lot of these different nuances unless you're there, boots on the ground in Longview or in Princeton or wherever, right?
Yeah, we definitely rely on our team. We have realtors on our team that my business partner, Todd Evans, is over in Longview. He's in the Longview, Tyler area, and he's a realtor and he's an investor and he's done mortgage loans and he does credit repair. So he's just a force on my team because I can rely on him for those questions. How's this area? Super hot. What do you have? How's this area? Questionable. What do you have?
Yeah.
That kind of thing. So, I mean, it's really important to have good team members and have, do your networking and build that team. You need a good real estate attorney, a good title company, and everybody's different, and a good CPA, because what one person chooses to do with their real estate investing is not going to be the same as another person's. Everyone's going to be different. If you're buying and holding, some people just want to park cash. They'll follow the 1% rule. If they can rent it for $1,000 a month, they'll pay $100,000 for it for a turnkey property. So that's good too. But I, as an investor, wouldn't pay that because that was going to mess up my cash flow.
Right.
Because I want
Yeah,
that 50%.
that's right. Priorities, right?
That's
Priorities.
right. Right.
But I'm curious as well, Karen, maybe just kind of maybe some parting words here from you. Is there anything you haven't said thus far you'd really just like to hit home, or any sort of advice to someone starting out, or maybe they have some cash looking to get started, just a bit of advice?
Yeah. Go to your local real estate investor meetup groups. Go to your local RIAs. You can find them. Go type it in Google, real estate investor group meeting in my area. Go on Facebook and ask, because if you go to one of those, you're going to meet people that are already investing or that support real estate investors. So your network is worth, what's the saying? Our net worth is worth our network is worth our network. So if you want to be more successful, go hang around people that are already doing what you want to do, learn from them, let them make the mistakes. Don't bloody your own knees just because you want to go try to do it yourself. Don't try to reinvent the wheel.
Yeah. Hey, that's some great advice there, Karen. And maybe we're in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, another part of the state, another part of the country. Where can we find you?
You can go to realimpacttraining.com, and all of our locations are there. All of our information's there. I'm on Facebook, Karen Maxwell. Feel free to reach out. I don't have a problem with it. I'm very social. Just don't be a creep, because I will block you.
Duly noted. Creep, stay away.
I'm always like, when people are like, hello, and I'm like, hi, how can I help you? And they're like, wow, you're rude. And I'm like, no, getting to the point. This is not my dating site. So, but then I'm like, I need to answer because they might be needing to get a hold of me. So
Right.
I'm pretty flexible. And my cell phone number is 903-445-6023. I don't mind giving that out either. Just don't creep on me.
Duly noted, Karen. Well, thank you so much for coming on the show. I've learned a heck of a lot about you, your background, a bit about you kind of differentiating subject to different parts of wholesaling, and then of course the seller financing. So, appreciate it. And thank you again for coming on.
You're very welcome. I enjoyed it.
Sure. We'll talk to you later.
Okay, bye.